Welcome to the Accredited Investor. I'm Scott Smith, and I'm joined by Brian Smith. On this channel, we explore the ideas and the structures and the long-term thinking around private markets, wealth management, and alternative investing, all with an education first, no hype approach. Today, we're walking through common misconceptions about alternative investments and hopefully bringing clarity to each. Most investors think in terms of stocks and bonds and mutual funds, and anything outside that kind of feels kind of unfamiliar. And of course, unfamiliar often gets labeled risky or maybe complicated. So our goal today is not to promote anything, but to clarify. So let's go right on to misconception number one. A common belief is that alternatives are only for billionaires. And historically, that's true. Institutions and family offices had access. But over time, access has expanded to accredited investors. And of course, that's an important distinction. So the important thing is to understand is that access isn't recommendation. Eligibility isn't necessarily suitability. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's why we focus on education first on this channel. So once access expands, people shift to risk. Brian, this is, where we hear other generalities.
Yeah, you make a great point by mentioning risk, right? So not all alternative investments are high risk.
Right.
I think a lot of people believe that the word alternative adds in just a different level of risk. Fact of the matter is, just like every other asset class, there are conservative investments to very risky investments. And the idea here is each one has different roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some may be focused on income, others on growth. It's all about diversification, just like any other investment that we work with our clients. And it's really the way that you want to think about it, as there's different risks, different behaviors, but they're all for a different purpose. And it's important to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in line with that. Scott, this also connects us to kind of a liquidity concern, right? Risk,
Exactly
diversification, and purpose. It's really all about diversification and a different way to think. Different risks, different behaviors with different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott, it really goes into the same conversation of liquidity. Another concern that people have with these investments is my money's locked up forever.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, yes, there's different time horizons, but that doesn't mean that they're permanently locked up. A lot of our clients are used to this idea of just the general market, where they can buy funds or stocks today, sell them later that day, or maybe at the latest the next day.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, these time horizons are based off the importance of these investments. People need to understand that they are going to get into this investment with an idea of when they're going to get out, but it may not just be tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
You kind of want to match the investments to the purpose of the capital. Right?
That's exactly right. Because unlike a lot of stocks that are out there right now that we're used to, this capital is being immediately deployed into these investments, which is why it may be an alternative investment that may suit a different need. It gives you that alternative investment feel.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got another assumption that we hear is everything is the same.
This misconception is really about the fact that people think about alternative investments as just private equity, that it's all private equity. But that's only one piece of the broader landscape, right? There are other categories. There's private credit, there's real estate and real assets, there's infrastructure and digital assets. Each behaves differently, and each serves a different role. Alternatives are not just one thing. They're kind of tools that are used differently. And as people see the range, they focus kind of on complexity, right? Now we've got all kinds of investments to talk about. So, tell us a little bit about why people kind of hesitate in this area.
Yeah, Scott, that's a great point. So the hesitation comes from this thought process that everyone has to be an expert. And to be honest with you, it is complex, but it's not too complex. And really, it shows why you should be working with an individual like our firm. The big misconception out there is that everyone has to be an expert to be investing in this area. And to be honest with you, the fact of the matter is they need to be qualified, but they don't need to be an expert.
Right.
There are experts out there that are spending the time to understand, to help with some of those other misconceptions we had before, right? The idea here is you need to understand the framework. You need to understand what the focus is and the reason for this investment. So the role of this investment, back to that time horizon conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand how long the investment's going to be in there to make sure it continues to suit your long-term goal. And that, back to this conversation, does it fit your plan?
Right.
Don't get in these investments just because everybody else is, right? I think it's important for people to understand, slow down, guide their way through it, and don't make any mistakes because of misunderstandings. The information is out there, and make sure you're having the correct conversations. And no, lack of access is not the problem. It's understanding if you have the right access.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that brings us up to a core philosophy, Scott. One of the things I think this channel is really based on.
Yeah, that's exactly that's kind of education first. When something is complex, it should be understood. Structures matter, timelines matter, and risk matters. Education reduces mistakes more than chasing performance. At Pathworks, our philosophy is simple: slow the process down so decisions are made with clarity. So if you want to go deeper, we'd love you to visit our site. We expand on these ideas in a clear way. It's kind of built for accredited investors who want clarity first. No pressure, no product push, just kind of a place to learn. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to go deeper, you can visit, of course, the website for more education resources. If you think this was helpful, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll be sharing more content like this regularly. We'll see you next time. Thanks.